Hello, everybody. My name is Mayara Floss. I'm live on Rural Café now. We are just starting our fourth Rural Café, and this cafe will be about the World Rural Health Challenge, and I am a medical. So I just bring the word for our people that is here. We can start with Jacobo, and it just going. So. Jacobo?
Okay, thank you, Myra. Um, my name is Yakubu. I am a family physician and I practice in North Central Nigeria, precisely Jos. I have the privilege of being part of a system that is both rural and urban in setting, or semi-urban, if I may describe it. So um, I think this is interesting for me because I can transit between being at my urban center. I am part of a primary care center in the teaching hospital and my center. But we have rural outposts, which it's more or less like 3 hours drive, within a radius of 3 hours drive from the urban center. So it also gives me that flair of the rural practice. I'm also part of the faculty at my university, and I teach family medicine to undergraduates as well as supervise family medicine trainees in the postgraduate program. So I'm very, very happy to be here, and I hope I can learn as well as offer something in return. Naira?
Oh, yeah, okay. And Luis?
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Luis, as Mayra told, and I'm a family medicine trainee in Portugal. I practice in the outskirts of the city of Porto, but as Jacobo mentioned, it's a similar place. So it's in the outskirts of a city, but it's also semi-urban. So there are rural areas around. And I'm also part of Vasco da Gama movement, so the European Network for Future and New Family Physicians. And today I'll be coordinating the conversation on Twitter. So please use the hashtag Rural Café to send us some questions and inputs to our conversation here today.
Yeah. And Amber?
Hello, my name is Amber. I am a medical student studying at Swansea University in Wales. I'm originally from the British Virgin Islands in the Caribbean, so my interest in rural health is sort of from the perspective of having small communities in the Caribbean as well as having very remote settings in Wales. I'm also on the rural and remote health and medical education track at Swansea University. And also, I will also be coordinating the conversation on Facebook under the event World Rural Health Challenges. So as Louise said, if you use the hashtag Rural Cafe, then we can take questions from there as well. Thank you.
Okay, enjoy. Okay. Could you turn your mic on now? Joy? Well, until Joy try to I would just like to bring. You just need to click on the mic, Joy.
I don't think she knows that her mic isn't on.
Yeah. Please turn your mic on, Joy.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fine. That's one of the.
Yeah, I did turn it on.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Joy. I'm a family physician, a young family physician. I just graduated, and I'm currently working in a rural practice, which is like about an hour's drive from where I live, which is more of a town urban area, but my practice is in the rural area. We have 60 beds capacity admission, but it's more of a primary health care, and I center more on community health, working with the communities, educating the communities on preventive care. Yes, basically that's Joy.
Awesome. So now we have everybody in us on the middle, and now everybody is managing how works the Google. So we can start with our World Rural Challenge. I think I can just start with one of the great challenges. I think for now is to create the consciousness of the importance of the rural education on medicine schools and on universities around the world. And I think you can bring more to the discussion. So I'm not sure if what's rolling on Twitter, and on Facebook, but I bring the education thing because I think I'm a medical student and member as well. So I think I have this feeling that we need to study more and learn more on the universities. In my university in Brazil, I didn't have any class about rural. So how it works around the world. Maybe Jacobo or Joy, can you talk?
Okay. Should I say ladies first? So probably Joy can go ahead.
Joy?
So hi, in terms of training in our country, we usually have rural training. Our setups are basically based in the rural area. We, like for the college that I attended, we have it more in the rural region, but once you are admitted, you're dispersed to centers which are 50 kilometers away from the main urban centers. And that makes it possible for you to train more rural than urban. And during your training, we are also taught on community-oriented healthcare, where we work with communities and get to learn more about the communities and help to teach them more on preventive care. So basically, we are trained on rural healthcare than urban care. But there is one more center that trains on urban care, that's the Aga Khan. But for us in Kenya, most centers are training rural.
Jacobo?
Yeah, thank you, Myra. I think we have a mixture of almost everything thrown into the same pot, if I may use that expression. For medical school, my medical school was situated on an urban center, but we had rural outposts, which we will be sent to spend a few weeks to months resident there, taking lectures there. But most of the training we had was in the urban center. I think that in a way reflects some of the challenges we've had with our own primary healthcare system, such that the best facilities are the urban centers and most people have to come. So the medical school undergraduate training sort of reflects this. The undergraduate training takes place more at the urban center, but then it has outposts in the rural settings where students can go to spend time and know what the rural feel it's like. My postgraduate training as a family physician too reflected that. If I put it as a percentage, I think I spent close to 10, let me say about 10% or 20% of my time in a rural outpost. So it's like a back and forth thing. Now, as a family physician, I occupy a consultant position at a teaching hospital as a family physician, and from time to time, I need to go into the rural outpost to see what my residents are doing, supervise what they're doing, and provide some training time with them. So it's a bit different from what Joy experiences. In fact, I do admire Joy's experience in that for us, community-oriented primary care, it's more, it's not really established as it should be. We practice a lot of, shall I say, person-centered care with provision for offshoots to the community. So it's more or less like the community outreach takes place once in a while. But I think the times of postings when either as a resident or as a consultant providing supervision, the time of postings where you go to spend time in the community, ranging from 6 weeks to 12 weeks, as the case may be, provides that rural feel. But I'll still say it's predominantly person-centered rather than a community-oriented primary care. So for me, it's still a learning process, wanting to expand my experience, and I hope that says something.
Sure. What's your experience, Luis?
Well, in Portugal, at least in medical faculty, we don't have a lot about rural health and rural family medicine. I actually done only a 2-week course in a rural practice during my 6 years of medical faculty. So 2 weeks in 6 years, it's definitely short. I think the other faculties in Portugal also have the same problem. Perhaps not in the same proportion, perhaps some have a little more than I had, but still perhaps only 1-2 months in 6 years, so definitely not enough. During family medicine, the training programs, it really depends on where the residents apply for a position. So if they apply for a position in a practice which operates in the urban setting, then they will do the rest of their family medicine program in that setting. If they choose a rural setting practice, then they will be there for the rest of their program, so 4 years, and they will do their rotations in the nearby hospital. But so it really depends on where the people apply for, and perhaps those that are in the urban settings can apply for a short exchange in an urban setting, but that's not really common at all, although there is such a possibility.
Amber?
So I have a similar situation to what Yakubu described, where in Wales there is a centralized hospital that acts as like the health center, but there are also some practices in more rural settings, and we do get exposure to the rural settings, but most of our training happens in the centralized hospital. And I think the reason that they do that is not only because most of the resources are allocated there, but medical school is a lot about learning by exposure to patients. And I think by having one hospital where everything is centralized allows medical students to sort of have a rapid exposure to everything in one place. However, I think in rural settings, you do get exposure to more unique presentations of things that are common. And now in Swansea University, we have a track called Rural and Remote Health in Medical Education. And what that does is it allows students who select to be on that track to specifically go more to rural settings than to urban. But you are still required to have experience in urban settings specifically for that exposure. So I think one of the challenges that you face in rural medicine is, one, it's having issues where resources are allocated more to urban settings purely because they can reach the widest number of people in one time. And the second thing is, as a medical student, because the urban center is sold as sort of you will see lots of interesting things, whereas rural is sort of you might see something interesting every once in a while. You're almost shifting the focus to almost ensure that more medical students go to the urban setting rather than rural. So I think by advertising the benefits of rural medicine in terms of building relationships with parents, patients, and having a deeper connection with the communities that you work in, it's it's more beneficial to you as a student and also to the community where you'll be learning and eventually practicing.
Can I add something to this?
Jacobo?
Myra. I just picked up something from what Amber said about interesting cases being more at the urban setting and the exposure, the experience, and that's why medical training happens there. You know, incidentally, for me, it's the reverse. I think my most enriching experiences has been each time I visited our rural outposts. There are certain things I see there that I will never see at my urban center. Um, the engaging experience between the patients, it's much more, it's as if there are no norms, there are no rules, so we're free to just engage, and it's more of a personalized experience. I think that's the rationale behind asking our medical students to go on planned postings at these community centers, because if we allow them stay just at the training center in the urban area, we think their experience will be it will be limited. Their competency levels will really be limited if all their training took place just at the urban center.
I totally agree with you, Jacobo. Like, I think it's limited. I just had a chance to have a rural experience because I would like to have one, and I insisted to have one, and I'm still insisting that I'm doing my interns now, and I need to ask the professors, look, I really would like to don't be on the hospital. I would like to go to rural, and they are trying to manage to find one place for me to our local health system, and I'm going to do my other interns around other places in Brazil to have a chance to experience rural medicine. And just to bring, I agree that for the universities, maybe who is not in a very mature process of including rural on the curricula, I think the logistic of bringing or inserting people in the rural setting is much harder for them. Just because it's harder, it doesn't mean that we need to do it. We need to experience. I think I just wrote on Twitter now that I feel that we don't have rural in Brazil, if you think in my medical curricula. I think we just have urban place because I can get one exposure around 6 years medical course. So we need to think about it. And just to bring more, Veronica, she wasn't able to participate today, but she asked me to bring something to discuss, and I will try to bring it. What do you think that is the difference between urban and rural? Who would like to start?
If I can start, if that's okay?
Yeah, sure.
I think one of the main differences that I found in my very limited experience is actually the connection that you have with the patient, because they might present the same way in a rural practice as in an urban practice, but the issues around them are very different and the way you manage them is very different. For example, in a general practice in an urban town, you ask a patient what their career is and it tends to be an office job or something like that. So your concern is managing how many days off sick they'll need or something like that. Whereas in a rural setting, it's, they're the farmer working, and they're the only one that provides meat or vegetables to the community, or, they become profoundly depressed if they're not able to carry out their farm work, and so on and so forth. And you have to consider their age, their family, their financial situation. And then because you're so invested in managing, outside of their medical problem, I think it builds a much stronger connection with them, and it also makes them a bit more memorable with you.
Yeah, I agree with Amber. It's a totally different setting. It's kind of amazing that's they most of the time they have the food that they produce, and I think the diseases are different, the issues are different, kind of the sun or the weather, and we have a lot of depression, and sometimes everybody thinks that rural is beautiful and could not be as well. And I think the difference between urban that we are more far away from the city center, so you are more far away if you have any kind of difficult situation that you need to manage by yourself. You're usually more isolated. And, and what do you think, guys, or Joy?
Thank you, Fluff. The thing I would say about rural healthcare is that it's more of raw medicine. You're getting raw cases that you deal with them as the first person. You don't get them tampered on, not like in urban where you get cases who have been dealt with, they've already been handled by so many practitioners, and you're really not getting the proper aspect, the proper problem that is within that client. But with rural practice, you're getting raw clients who it's your first time, and it's the first time you're interacting with them. You may pick up problems which someone else in urban regions may be picking up complications of what has happened over the years. And also, as Amber said, the relationship is something so beautiful. As a family physician, you'll have a lifelong relationship that not will really not happen in urban practice. Urban practice, you're practicing with speed. In rural practice, you've got the time to get to see this person. You can follow up in their homes. You can follow up even in the marketplaces. But you build a better relationship than that person who's in the urban practice. Yes, we are faced by quite a number of difficulties when we are running practice in the rural area because of resources. We don't have the same resources that are there in the urban practice. Whereas in the urban practice, they have all the resources available and at their reach. But at the same time, in rural practice, you can learn to improvise. You can learn to be more innovative, to do your practice in a simpler and cheaper manner, and make sure that your clients have a better hand in what you're doing. And then one more disadvantage is that the rural practice, the setup is not as beautiful as Myra has said. Everyone wants where they can get to cinemas, have fun, but in rural practice, all that is not available, and there is not much fun, but you can create it. And the fun is there. You just have to make your space more fun. So basically, that's the most I can say about rural practice compared to urban.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. I like listening to Joy because you can see the excitement, and she's just into the whole experience. For me, I think I just wanted to share an experience that I had that I think in a way reflects the difference between the rural and the urban practice. I remember talking with one of the leaders at my center at one time about getting some more conducive facilities for my trainees at the rural setting. And what he just told me was that, hey, you don't need any more than you already have. Don't be better off than the people. Don't come off better off than the people. Just have basic amenities. And some of the things I tried to tell him was that, hey, being in the rural setting does not mean I can't have better social amenities. It does not mean my trainees cannot be better. It does not mean they can't have access to the satellites. They can't have access to the internet. I beg to differ to say that the rural setting should just be given that what is basic. I think, yes, you try to make technology that is appropriate for the rural setting. But I think there's just been this pervading perception that because it's the rural setting, we don't need to invest much. We don't really need to bother so much about providing better. Just provide something that is antiquated, and I think that it's reflective on probably it's a health policy thing, or the policy makers who think those in the urban center are probably better off, and so we should invest therein. So there's a sort of value system that comes into play, in which the rural people in the rural setting probably are looked down upon. And I think something that really, really brings to bear is it's the socioeconomic status, the economic buying power of those who stay there. So that's something too that really, really makes practice there a bit challenging. So I've talked about perceptions. I've talked about it reflecting on the policies, health making policy, and I've talked about the economic position status of most patients in the rural setting compared to our urban settings.
Okay, and thank you, Jacobo. I just would like to interrupt to say hi to Sarah. She just arrived to our rural cafe. Can you just say who you are, Sarah, and then we come back?
Sorry, there we go. Thanks, Mayra. Hello, everyone, and sorry to join you late. Luck would have it that it's 6 in the morning in Canada. On one Saturday of the year, I have 2 things happening, whereas normally nothing happens the rest of the year. But anyway, apologies. So I am my background is rural general practice, and I've worked in the UK, Australia, and Canada, and I've taken up an academic bent to my career, and appreciated the last person who was speaking about the value system and the struggle we have to convince politicians to spend money in rural areas is quite a significant challenge. And I've enjoyed being part of the World Rural Café to hear how things are going on elsewhere, and I've got a bit of a world view from having been in practice for quite some time, as you might guess, but also just because I travel quite a lot and have had the opportunity through Wonka to meet people from around the world. So it's great to be part of this initiative and hear more directly. So apologies for interrupting and being late, and yeah, don't let me interrupt anymore. Keep going, and I'll chime in if I've got something to say.
So Amber, you'd like to add to Jacobo?
Yeah, I just wanted to add about the resource allocation thing that you were talking about, because in the Virgin Islands where I'm from, we have 4 main islands, and only one of them has the hospital on it. And one of the issues that we had is the island I live on has a clinic that acts as a primary health center and an emergency health center. Every time they say, oh, we should do this with the clinic on Virgin Gorda, the government officials always say, yes, but the hospital's on Tortola, there's more things on Tortola, the capital is there, we have the ambulance and blah, blah, why would we give this service to the clinic. But I think by actually investing resources into rural settings, I mean, Virgin Gorda isn't a rural setting, but we have quite a small population. You actually make much more of an impact. You get to fine tune things, especially if they're new technologies. You get the opportunity to kind of put them through the process where you can then have a nice finished product at the end of it. You've impacted a community in a positive way and improved your relationship with the community. So I just wanted to say that, I find it quite frustrating when, as you said, people think the rural setting, they're used to not having very good quality things, therefore why should you improve what's there? When actually you should think of it the opposite way and say, they don't have a lot, therefore there's a lot we can do and improve things vastly. Thank you.
Sure, I agree with you. I think we are creative and we know a lot of, we learn how to do a lot of things. Actually, when I was doing I have my experience in Ireland with Dr. Edward Hardy, and in a rural setting, and he said, well, a lot of times the ambulance will not know where they need to come. So I just get a plastic bag and I put on the way so I could signalize how they could find the way where they need to turn and where they need to go to that place. And I think the rural isn't so easy, like having name on the street, like on urban areas, and then we need to be more creative. And I think I like the value system that you were talking about. And I'm not sure if anyone would like to add something, maybe Joy or Louise.
Well, I don't have any inputs from Twitter until now, but I can give you my views on this and the differences between rural and urban family medicine. And I think it really depends on the geographical and demographic features, the access that these patients in these communities have to hospital-based specialists. And this creates in rural settings a greater diversity in ranges of the presentations and the conditions that the family physician sees, and also the facilities that rural family doctors have available to them to administer primary health care. So I think it really depends on these two pillars and the difference between the two settings.
Sure. Anyone would like to talk? Hi, Sarah, we are not listening you. Just turn on. Okay.
Sorry about that. There was a very interesting article in the Harvard Business Review in the middle of last year, and I think it was called Reverse Innovation. I'm not quite sure if that's the right title, but it's actually a very good summary of why, actually kind of amplifying what Amber was saying about the benefits of designing something to meet the needs of rural people first, and that then it is more likely to apply to other populations. And frequently in business, they assume that just by modifying it a bit and making whatever they're working on not quite as good, it will be acceptable in rural. And this article was advocating actually you need to think the other way around, and that it can become a world leader through this process. And so it's interesting to hear other disciplines and their thinking. If I can find the article, I'll send it through to you, because I think it would help in your arguments. But it's an ongoing argument that we have to have for allocation of funding.
just to bring a bit more. I just would like to, Joy would like to talk.
Maybe to add on to the innovation. Hi, Sarah. Welcome. Maybe to add to the innovative bit of it, I look at the rural practice where I'm currently practicing at. They've really worked hard to bring in innovation in, and they are still working to bring in innovation. And we hope with time, this will be a center of excellence where everyone will be able to look up and see that these are rural practice, but looking different from what rural practice is expected to be. Trying to build in terms of resources. As Amber was saying, when resources are not adequate, it seems like rural practice, but rural practice can be grown. And for sure, we would like to see that article from Sarah as we build the practice into a more innovative practice.
Sure. Just to bring more, I would like to ask you what is the difference between rural and urban? What do you think that's the great difference between rural and urban? And thinking more in like, we have a lot of different places here, and what is the difference in morbidity and like what is the main or setting or what you had experienced, or what is the, do you have more malnutrition in rural or even better nutrition? Why do you think that's the great difference? Anyone would like to start?
Maybe I'll start with our setup. Thank you, Myra. The thing is, we have more mortalities in the rural setup, basically because the resources aren't adequate. As we said earlier, resources is everything. And basically because resources aren't adequate, access in terms of road access, in terms of a vehicle to be able to make it to the healthcare facility, the distances. Also, education is one failure because most of the rural clients aren't so well educated. They don't know how to check out for danger signs, when to come into hospital. And then there's also the traditional practices. Traditional practices prevail so much within the rural community that they missed out on being able to access healthcare because they want first to be attended to by a traditional healer or a traditional birth attendant. So by the time they get to you, most of them have had complications being dealt with within the rural facilities by the traditional and cultural practices that they undergo. So basically, those are the main challenges we face, and that's why mortality is so high. Yes, malnutrition is so high. Helminthiasis is so high because of hygiene and availability of water. So waterborne disease is higher as compared to the rural practice. Sorry, I got disconnected for a while. Someone was calling in. So basically, that's the main challenge we face as rural practitioners.
I think for me, at least this week, I can feel in a very harsh way because the indigenous little boy less than 1 year old was killed here in Brazil when his mom was breastfeeding him on the street. It was an indigenous boy, and it's not very well noticed. It isn't on the news around the world. I don't know why the media is so silent, because it was kind of terrible. The guy just killed him, and I think one of the great challenges is I think one of them is the intolerance. Even like it's in urban and rural setting, but I think it's kind of worse in rural or special populations like indigenous people or other special populations that we deal also. And I think this health intolerance and there's a lot of communication barriers. We have a lot of difference to communicate with someone that is living in a rural area, and it's hard to communicate. It's different to communicate, at least for me, to explain, and sometimes they are not so well connected, and they do not have the same vocabulary or communication competence to deal with rural people. I think maybe because I came from a urban setting, even if part of my family live in rural. But I think just to bring it, I think one of the great challenges is the intolerance of our world. Now we can have this experience with the immigrants and also in Europe, I think, and we have the intolerance with the indigenous people here. I'm not sure what's your own experience. Please bring it. And I think the communication barriers, and here in Brazil, that the rural setting is completely different from the urban setting. We have different kind of disease, like we have more disease when we are talking about rural setting. And I think we have a lot of issue with depression as well. And we have the issues that it's kind of less discussed in rural setting, but we have violence, women violence in rural settings, and just it. I think, and also just to finish, sorry, is the intoxication with agrotoxics, and they usually do not use the protection clothes and don't have the consciousness to work with that. So it's our discussion. So who would like to talk? Maybe Sarah, Luis, Amber.
I can add something. What Joy was saying about transport to the hospitals, it's particularly an issue in Wales, but also in my country, in the Virgin Islands, because the only way to get from any of the other islands to the island with the hospital is by boat or by plane. And we have a semi-privatized healthcare system, so you pay for it. You pay for the transport. I think, the emergency boat is about $400 just to take you for a 15-minute boat ride to the hospital. And one of the things that I find particularly interesting, because tourism is one of our main industries, is if you are on a vacation in the capital, there's the hospital, there's an ambulance, there's emergency services for dental and medical, there's a plastic surgeon in the private sector. But if you're on literally any other island, sometimes there's not even a doctor there. So it's quite an interesting challenge trying to overcome that, because I mean, you can't make the sea any smaller than what it is. But you do have to find an alternative to kind of equalize the distribution of healthcare services that's relevant to the size of the population and the needs of the population. And I think that that's something that hasn't been investigated by my government or thought about very thoroughly.
Sure, maybe Luis?
Yes, physical distance between places can be obviously a challenge. Well, Portugal is a small country, but indeed the rural areas in the interior side of Portugal have this kind of problem with the distance and the time they sometimes can take to get to an hospital or to primary care facilities. So I think that's always a challenge, but also the fact that these populations are usually older. So we have an aging population, and in the rural areas this is even more so. And aged people also have an additional difficulty to get to sometimes these primary health care centers and so on. So there's obviously that to add on, and also the fact that the populations in these areas are generally poorer than in urban settings. So poverty is a strong risk factor for all kinds of ailments, diseases. So these are two additional factors that also add to the differences in morbidity and mortality between the two settings, so urban and rural.
Yes,
Sarah?
thanks, Mara. There's quite a lot of scholarship on this now. So there is material there for you to be able to read and be better informed, but you've captured the essence of the differences between urban and rural, and specifically with health, it's about access to resources and services. And that's really common around the world. And I was thinking about this a bit this week because we had a very interesting program on the radio about how in Syria the government tactic is to actually, where a community, and I'm sorry, I mean a town, the city, is not complying with the government, they basically block any supply of all the basic needs, so access to any sort of medication, health services, food, water, the whole lot. And I guess I was thinking that this was a terrible situation, and how awful to be living in it, and how, and in fact they gave a little clip from a doctor seeing a child who hadn't eaten for 7 days. And and I just was thinking that, well, their comment was that we're so connected now that we all know that this is happening and that nothing is being done about it to a large extent, that it's not quite being done in an effective way so that it stops happening altogether. But my thought was, well, this is a city, and what is happening out in the rural area will be so much worse. And we're not getting to hear what's happening in rural areas. So I think it's very important that we keep working at why it's important and what the differences are, and really consider the extremes and how they impact rural differently. Any disaster impacts rural differently to urban, and we need to come up with some humanitarian, if nothing else, guide specifically for rural. I was I know that we've done lots of presentations on the difference between rural and urban, and one of the other aspects that no one's mentioned so far is that when you're in a rural community, you wear many different hats, and you're kind of in a group where you keep bumping into people in the different contexts, whether it's their work, their home life, or their belief system, or whatever it is. But you have that community spirit. Whereas in an urban setting, people are very isolated in a different way, that they don't tend to have that sort of community. So I think there's opportunities for rural communities to really take or make some advantages out of these situations that they're in, that we perhaps don't necessarily recognise or think about, so that it's important to be putting the positives of rural life forward and giving them support to progress ideas and things. Anyway, just support.
Thanks, Sarah. And welcome back, Jacobo. I just would like to ask you all. So, what can we say? What can we do, like to make the distance short, or make it the access better, or make the intolerance be more tolerant? What is the options that you find in your home setting, or even in a work setting, or what do you think? Anyone like to talk? Jacopo, you lose a lot of you would like to talk. We are not listening.
No, you're.
No, he's with the mic on. Well, Jacopo
Yes.
can talk. Maybe you, Sarah? Go ahead.
Saying that you're asking deep philosophical questions, so it's a little hard. I can tell you that my experience is that I'm not very good in the city. I don't like living in the city. I have had to live in communities of up to 120,000, and that's about as far as I can go, and enjoy my life. So I think the positives I get out of living in a rural area is that you can be independent. You're not kind of feeling crowded in on the whole time, and I think that is reflected not only personally but also in professional practice. So you have an opportunity to kind of address challenges yourself, and I've certainly appreciated being able to bring up my children in a rural community, and it's interesting to see how they I don't know what it is. I kind of think it's you learn the finer qualities of life somehow when you are a little bit more independent, rather than having everything just available to you around the corner. I'm not sure if that's what you were getting at, Myra, but that's what I was thinking anyway.
Okay, maybe Jacopo now? I do not know what's going on. We are not listening to you, Jacopo. No, it isn't working. Until Jacopo check his mic, maybe Joy, could you bring something? You're quiet for a while. Just turn your mic on.
It's back on.
Okay.
You can hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I was saying, at least I realized there are others who love the rural area. I live in rural, and I really love living in rural because, as Sarah said, you get to experience and live in a more free area than being so enclosed in cities with everything available. You don't learn how to be more innovative. But I understood your question as you want to know how we can mitigate the barriers that we face in terms of rural practice. Isn't it, Myra? You wanted us to be able to discuss how we mitigate the access, the traditional barriers we face, the cultural barriers that we face in the community. One thing I've learned, okay, for access, you basically have to work with governments, and sometimes it really can be hard. But I've learned one thing from one community I worked with. They modified a motorbike and made an ambulance which they could use to access whenever they had someone who's very ill. They put a small carrier at the side of the motorbike, and this could be used as a stretcher when you have very ill patients. And when it came to traditional and cultural practices, you can't fight those. You've got to learn to live with them, because tradition and culture and health are kind of linked together, to make sure that the bad practices that may be harmful to health, you educate them why they are harmful, and try and see how, yes, as far as they have their traditional cultures, how would you work them in terms of health and make them more healthy as far as they have their cultural practices, make them more healthy and integrate them in health if it's something that's being done outside within the community, like the traditional birth attendants who deliver the children back at home. Is there a way they can be educated? Is there a way that they can do it more hygienically, sterilize their equipment? We are the educators. If we can do that, we can help to reduce the barriers that we encounter within the rural practice, and that is possible. Thank you.
Lovely, Joy. It's really nice to listen it. I think one of the interesting things that I learned by a doctor here, a Brazilian doctor that works in a rural setting, is that he organized the network of folk healers. So they reference the people to him, and he referenced the folk healers when the people are personally interested to have this kind of care. So it's something that it's awesome that we can do this kind of integration of health. I think, Jacobo, you are back. Now he turned off the mic. Oh, I don't know what happened. So anyway, yes, I think this is awesome that we can do, and the hygiene and kind of a lot of people, when I try to explain what is family medicine, at least last week, I was talking to a girl. She was a secretary on the hospital, and she asked, "Oh, you would like to do after you graduate?" And then I said, "Well, I would like to do family medicine, and I will do my residence in family medicine." And she said, "What is family medicine?" And a lot of time, this comeback, I said, "I would like to do family medicine. Even I would like to do rural family medicine." They asked, "Rural family medicine, what is this?" And even family medicine, what is this? So we still need to create aware on this, and we need to create the understanding of family medicine, and it's kind of amazing. And then I said, well, family medicine is a doctor that he will look to you as a whole, and he will not break you in a feel or in a heart, and you try to bring a whole care of you. And she was like, this exists? And I was like, sure. And she said, this is amazing. It's kind of old doctors that see you as a whole. And I said, it's kind of, we are coming back to the old, as Sarah said before. So it's really interesting. I will pass the word to Amber, and then after to Jacobo. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Amber, please go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on what you were saying about getting all the traditional medicine people together, because one of the things I found from my experiences working in the Caribbean is that often, if you don't make the effort to explain health problems or medicine in terms of what people already understand about health, then you don't get as much of a response. Because, for example, in the Caribbean, a lot of people don't like taking tablets. It's nothing to do with what's in the tablet. They just don't like the fact that it's a tablet. So if you explain to them why it's in a tablet as opposed to the tea, and why this works better and why it's, you know, beneficial to them, and I'm not trying to poison you, then that you get a much better response, especially if you don't talk down to them. If you kind of say, okay, I totally understand why you're concerned. And sometimes I tell people, like, you know, I'm happy that you're questioning me, because it shows that you're interested in your healthcare. You can't approach your healthcare from the point of view of you being a child and I have all the power and I'm like a parent over you telling you what to do. You know, I can't take care of you 24 hours a day. Part of the responsibility is also from your end. So I think a lot of medicine requires cultural intelligence, whether it's the community you're working in or where you're from. I think you do need to be sensitive to what people understand about health, what their views are about health, and present information within that framework to them.
Yeah. Thanks. I'm sorry, I had an internet problem. I'm happy to be back. I hope I'm audible now. Myra, I'm audible? Okay, good. All right. So, I really liked what Amber, if I take questions, mitigate the challenges, how can we make rural practice work? I will say it's a follow-up on what Sarah has posted about reverse innovation. It's a follow-up on what Amber has just said, that it's an intentional process. It's not something that you're just going to wish it happened by itself. There has to be intentionality about this thing. I am looking back at my own experience working in the rural setting during my postings as a trainee, family medicine trainee. And it occurred to me that one of the reasons why my practice then was not rural friendly or did not achieve the results it wanted to achieve was because it was viewed as a foreign system. It was viewed as them versus us. That ownership and the community was not there. That participation was not there. That engagement was not there. And I think that if rural practice is going to work, irrespective of whether it's owned by the university, by the public health system, there has to be some form of engagement with the community itself. There has to be an ownership process. They have to feel that this is part of them. Okay. Then how can we mitigate issues like manpower? How can we mitigate issues like resources? I can't cite the journal, the article I read recently. It doesn't come to mind. But I recall that there was a project in which a community took it upon itself to sponsor people from their community go study medicine, and come back to work in their community. I think communities can own the training process of medical professionals. They can sponsor people who are willing to train, especially if you have training facilities that are within their settings. So I see this working when communities don't just sit down and say it's them versus us, come and do stuff for us. No, but I see it when communities get up and say we want to own the process that improves our access to health. So the little that we bring from the public health sector now becomes a lot when there's that happening already in the background. Myra?
Okay. Yeah, awesome, Jacobo. Thanks. I think we come back to a very important word that's called empowerment when we discuss this. I think I have a brief experience working with fishing communities here in Brazil. Just to talk briefly, in 2010, I was a medical student that doesn't like the way that we were being taught, and even doesn't like the patient relationship. We are kind of just very crazy and different students, and then we decide to create our own space on the community and with the community. It's a very different thing to say when you're doing something for the community or when you're doing something with the community. And I think this comes back also to what Amber was talking of, understanding what are we talking about and what is the difference between a pill or a tea, or even if you getting the cue to check these things. It's kind of amazing. And how can we empower rural people and even urban people, making them empowered of they engage it on the process. So it's nice to discuss it. Just to share one experience. I was talking to a doctor, and he said that once he decided to go and see how is the body of a pig, because the patients compare their own bodies with the pig bodies to understand where is the intestine and where is the liver and where is the heart, and that the anatomy that the anatomy knowledge that they have is based on the pig that they eat. So it's kind of a very interesting thing that sometimes the doctor needs to go and study the anatomy of the other animals to even explain the own anatomy. And just to briefly share one experience, I hope I don't make it so long. But we decided to create our own methodology to explain anatomy for this fishing community. And then we give some papers with the body draw, and then we asked for a group of people, draw your heart or draw your liver after, and draw your lungs and everything. And then some people draw a lung that was very big, and then you have two tracheas that go to your mouth, and then some people draw a brain that's kind of just middle of the head, and or it was like a small brain for a whole head, and some people did a huge liver, and some people draw the intestine like a spiral. And it was really interesting to check how they have their own understanding of their body and the way that they understand it. And after we brought a mannequin, and then we just showed how medicine think that it is, and not like, well, we have our own knowledge and we just isn't as knowledgeable as our knowledge. So we just bring the two knowledge together and explain how we think that it works, and they love it, and we love it because it's really, really easy to say, have this acetaminophen if you have fever. And once a woman in the community asked me, Mayara, what is fever? Sometimes we forgot what is normalized by our university, and we need to get more cultural competence, and we come back in engagement and empowerment. So I don't know, just sorry to be so long. Anyone would like to talk?
I'd like to add something if I can. I think that's a really interesting experiment actually, and I would love to do that at my own university or in my own community just to see what people think. Because one question that I got a few months ago was from my older sister, who although her ethnicity is Caribbean, she lives in America. And one of the things that I guess is now fashionable is this hot cupping thing, where people put hot glass jars on their skin. And she was telling me she wanted to do it because, it detoxes the body. And I told her, I said, the skin isn't actually the filter for the body, it's your liver and your kidneys. She said, oh, really? I didn't know that. Because every time she's heard about detoxing, it's always been through the skin that, pigs aren't clean because they don't sweat and so they're not detoxed. But once I explained to her that actually the liver and your kidney is what does it, so everything that's filtered is from the inside, not your skin. By the time you see things on your skin, it's definitely too late. it completely changed the way that she thought about healthcare. And it's, you know, it's being interested in what people think and asking them, oh, what's your opinion on this topic about healthcare, that you find out about these things, because of course none of us would ever think to imagine, oh, people think that their skin detoxes their body and not their liver, you know? So I think it's interesting to explore what people think.
Yeah, I would like just to add on that and to say that patients are actually the most underused resource in family medicine. So they are the best advocates that we have for family medicine and for rural family medicine. And to empower patients is to also empower rural family medicine.
Joy or Jacobo would like to add?
Thanks, Myra. Thanks, Myra. I really like the statement Louis just said, that patients are really the most underutilized resources in family medicine. Absolutely, absolutely. I agree. I agree with that statement. I think it also bears repeating that there has to be ownership in the community if we want to work. We can't be up there and they are down there. We can't give a different system to the urban setting and say the rural people don't deserve better. Okay? And if we really want this thing to work, it has to be driven and owned by the community. Because if you look at it critically, a number of us do not influence policy making decisions to the extent that we can cause a redistribution of resources better than what we have now. So till we are able to convince the governments to allocate more resources to the rural areas, I think we as family physicians can empower the community to own its own process, to engineer its own process, okay, to have a process that works and addresses its needs. And these things are not far-fetched. Just telling the people that it can work if you come to it, just educating them and making them realize that you can own this process. You can make a hospital work for you, okay? You can make it accountable to you, and inviting them to be part of it, you know, can really help address the shortfall. And I think the way you do that, eventually you get the attention of the policymakers. When they see people setting up and owning a process that works for them, and there's proof that it works, eventually you get the attention of the policymakers. So we've got to start somewhere and hope that we are met in the middle.
I love it what you say, Jacobo. That I think we are saying almost the same, but with different words and different backgrounds, and this is lovely. I just need to be the bad girl, that we are with 10, at least when we have 1 hour now and 50 minutes around of the Rural Cafe. So I'd like to ask if we can close it. So I would like to, if anyone would like to bring anything, and we are going to the end. But we can still talking on Facebook and on Twitter. I'm not sure if you have anything coming on Facebook or Twitter, Amber. And not really.
The comments I'm getting are mainly from the people in this group, and I've had a few posts that have been liked, so I think maybe it's a little bit too early for some people. So perhaps later on we'll get some comments and we can continue the discussion via Facebook.
Yeah, same on Twitter. I think the follow-up will come soon, but not as during the conversation here now.
Yeah, maybe when we do the next one, it will be 4 o'clock. People are more active on the internet. But anyway, anyone can watch it after. That's fine.
Yeah. I just
Just a question.
Joy?
What was the Twitter handle? What was the Twitter handle again?
What is the what choice? Sorry.
The Twitter handle was what again?
Rural Café.
Okay. You need to use the hashtag Rural Café, and then you got into the discussion.
We just
You
got
can
a question
after
by David Hogg, and he asks, what's the role for connectivity in the patient understanding and education? Is connectivity an issue for all? So what's your view on this?
I didn't hear the question clearly, Louis.
So what's the role of connectivity in terms of access to internet by phone or computer have in patient understanding and in patient education? Is connectivity an issue for you in your countries?
I think I'll put it like this. In my country, Kenya, mobile phones have become so common, and there is access to internet currently. So making it easier for connectivity and making it easier for patient education using the mobile handsets and internet. And most people are now on Twitter and Facebook, so education is much easier. WhatsApp is also another way we are using to educate. We currently have, like for my county, we currently have a group where each day, as a number of health practitioners, there is the public that is also involved. We raise a topic on a day, or population raises a topic, and we as doctors discuss it, and we educate the population on what ways they can be able to mitigate their problems, who best to be seen by, do they need to walk into a health facility, is it just about hygiene, is it just about diet, in terms of exercise, are they doing the right ones, are they doing the wrong ones? We've got nutritionists also involved. So basically, social media is working for us, and we're using it. Rural does not stop us from using it.
Yeah.
Back to you.
Yeah, I'm really impressed. I think that for me, connectivity it's a big issue when it comes to patients having access to health knowledge. Here in the urban settings, of course, social media is still not the main mode of disseminating information. Especially amongst those who really need it, because you have a large chunk of my patient community who can't reach, and not to talk about being able to follow information on the internet. Yes, we have a growing adolescent and young population, and yes, for those people, we can access them. Practicing in the rural setting, connectivity is a big issue, because I think that's one of the things that creates isolation for a number of doctors in my own setting. So I will say that I can only reach a select population if I wanted to engage using social media in my country.
I agree with Jacobo. It's not for all. Like for who is from a generation 90s or even end of 80s and earlier, it's easy to work with the technology. But last week I was helping a woman that have a smartphone to set the alarm for her to remember how to, when she needs to take her medicine. And it was kind of like, for her, she has the smartphone, but it is a whole world, and she couldn't manage that information. And also, what I would like to bring is like, I have a lot of patients that have Facebook or smartphone, and they are well connected, but they even think about that they could research or search about their disease. And when I said, oh, what do you think about getting new recipes that are more healthy? You can have the internet to do this, or try to research about your own issue. They said, I never talked about it. And I was like, they still feeling that you are the people of knowledge. The whole you need to say everything to him or to them, and it's kind of sometimes you just need to say maybe you can use your smartphone to find a lot of information as well, and then we can discuss it. But it isn't. Sometimes it's kind of hard for me to manage this. I'm not sure if you have this on with you. So I'm not sure if Louise, Amber, Joy. Are we having? Yeah, go ahead, Amber.
In terms of connectivity, I think in Wales, I mean, there are parts of Wales that don't even have cell phone signals. There are some people in the rural communities that don't bother buying a cell phone because it never works. So I think, yeah, connectivity is a big issue, but as everyone has said already, it is for a select audience. It also requires your patients to be highly motivated because, for example, in terms of patients with mental health problems, you can use online cognitive behavioral therapy, but the patient has to want to do it. You can't make them do it on their own time, and they have to be interested enough to actually make it effective. So I think, yes, I think while we have the technology, we should totally use it and take it as far as it can go, really. But yeah, it is for a specific population, not necessarily for everyone, and you do have to be careful with how things are, monitored because, for example, the internet is a great tool, but it can also be quite dangerous. People can often be misled, and there's nothing you can do about it. So, but I think things like this, especially the rural cafe, where a lot of us are from different countries doing rural medicine with an interest in rural medicine, and being able to interact like this, it's very encouraging and inspiring, and hearing lots of interesting stories that give you lots of ideas. So I think from that point of view, in terms of education, this is very useful. But like I said, most of my classmates wouldn't be interested in doing this because, for them, this isn't what they want. This isn't how they learn. This isn't what they're interested in. So I think, yeah, it's for a select audience.
Yeah, it can do a lot, however, and David Hogg was commenting on Twitter that he thinks that the careful use of social media can do lots to close the distance in rural health for patients and clinicians, and I certainly agree with him. I think that we covered most of these grounds on our previous conversation, our last Rural Café, so I invite David Hogg to watch that Rural Café that we had last month, and also again redirect everyone with an interest in this to the guidelines that are available and the resources that are available on social media and the social media used by clinicians, namely the Vasco da Gama Compass on social media. So go to vdgm.eu, you'll find there a link to this social media compass and the ways that you can use social media to educate yourself and your patients in terms of family medicine and what you can do for them using social media.
Sure, I think also who is asking about social media. Our last discussion on the Family Medicine Café was about social media, so we have discussed about it, and please check it on our. We have on actually. Luis, you can more about what you are organizing and putting everything together on the some website. I think it's a great idea. So we have there the calendar and everything of the Rural Cafe and more.
Yes, so Kyle Oatbeck and me manage a website that you can access through the link bit.ly/SoMe ambassadors. So you can Google it and you'll find it as well. And this website has a lot of resources in terms of what deals with family medicine. And the rural cafes are obviously there. We have the links to past conversations, and also a calendar for the past and future, hopefully future cafes as well. And I will be uploading, for instance, the transcript for the tweet chat later today to the website as well. But in this website, you can also find a calendar for events, so family medicine events across the world. You can find a list of social media ambassadors in family medicine. You can find initiatives like One Word for Family Medicine that deals with advocating for family medicine. You can find about Balint 2.0, a new way of doing Balint through video conference, so discuss the medical-patient relationship. So there are a lot of useful resources there, and the website also has the link for the social media compass that I was talking about earlier on. So please visit the Social Media Ambassadors Network, Google for it, or find the link on the Rural Cafe hashtag or the Facebook page for the Rural Cafe as well.
Well, we are getting very long on this cafe, so I would like to ask everybody for close your what if you like to bring an idea and say bye. I will give the word to each one of you, and then we need to finish because we know that's around 1 hour. We are in an hour and a half. It was a pleasure. If anyone would like to do an resume or put the summary of this rural cafe, I think we discussed a lot of things about economic disparities, differences between urban and rural, more between rural areas. I think also the challenges are the intolerance and the communication difference and barriers, and how can we use the internet and how to empower patients and this kind of things. I think logistic also in the universities and rural education, and I think also the creativity of rural settings and the creativity in communication. So I will pass the word maybe first to Jacobo, and then after Luis, after Joy, and finally Amber. And then sorry guys, but
Yeah, thank you so much, Myra. I think the starting point of any change in rural health is being able to influence the training process of our medical students and medical doctors. We just have to keep at it till we succeed. And then, of course, empowering the community to own the process. For me, this will just be the take-home message today.
Yeah, I totally second what Jacobo just said. So empower medical students and the communities to own this process and to go ahead with rural health and overcoming these challenges that are certainly there, but can certainly also be overcome.
Thank you. I've learned quite a lot. I've learned that we face the same challenges globally, not just in Kenya, not just in Nigeria. It's basically the same when you come to practice rural medicine. And I look at it that these are challenges. We can work as a team and mitigate the challenges that we face and offer better care. Maybe for the future, Myra, we can discuss in terms of patient-centered care, how we practice it in rural practice, and be able to see how we can best offer the best patient-centered care within the rural practice. Thank you.
Amber?
I wasn't sure if it was my turn. Yeah. I'm just repeating what Joy said. I have learned a lot. This has been quite an interesting conversation, and I've learned a lot from it as well. And if I'll say the same thing I say every time. It's really nice that all of us can come together and talk about our experience and continue to inspire people to be interested in family medicine and to take an interest in the issues in rural medicine, and kind of share of our ideas of innovation about trying to overcome some of the challenges that we face. And I hope that this continues and that we, influence more people to take up the Rural Medicine Cafe and talk about what's happening in their community as well.
Sure. So thank you everybody that was watching us. Who would like, we can keep talking on Twitter or Facebook. On Facebook, I created a questionnaire of what do you like that we talk on the next cafe, or even what is the subject that you like that we bring, and you can comment, and we try to bring all the ideas that we can. It's coming up. I'm not sure if it will be the next one, but the woman empowerment and the women rural, and also the leadership and other challenges that we have on talking about family medicine and rural. Thank you to everybody, and we keep talking. Bye.